Hello, everyone. This is Drew Allen, the Millennial Minister of Truth and host of The Drew Allen Show. Billionaire and former Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks, that'd be the NBA team, former owner Mark Cuban has really quickly become one of Kamala Harris's biggest cheerleaders. Um, I was just curious, firstly, whether Mark Cuban is a moron or if he's a fraud. And a lot of people, of course, tend to think that billionaires have got a lot of money. They must be smarter than you. They must know something that you don't. And so I actually, despite my obvious offer of my opinion of Mark Cuban's position supporting communism in the person and candidate of Kamala Harris, well, look, I gave him the benefit of the doubt and I decided to ask the question that you might be asking yourself, which is, why? Why is Mark Cuban, this allegedly intelligent person who's very, very rich, what is it that he loves about Kamala Harris? I mean, of course, she hasn't given us any of her policy positions. And as you'll soon learn, that makes perfect sense because Mark Cuban actually doesn't care about policies. Mark Cuban, I guess you have to go back to 2008. He voted for Barack Obama. And I have to tell you, Mark Cuban is a self professed libertarian. He says he leans libertarian, which is odd that you would go from leaning libertarian, right? Freedom, you being against government intrusion, and yet he votes for the most intrusive candidates and pro government candidates he can. Now, with Barack Obama, you might be wondering, okay, why did he vote for Barack Obama, right? What was it about Barack Obama's policy positions that were so attractive to Mark Cuban, right? Smart guy, obviously digs into the details, cares deeply about the intelligence of the candidate. Well, none of that's true. Mark Cuban voted for Barack Obama because Barack Obama is black. That's right. Mark Cuban is a racist. That's why he voted for Barack Obama. That's not an allegation, by the way. I will give it to you and prove it to you. It's a fact based on his own words himself. Back in 2008, he wrote this piece in the Mavs blog about why he was voting for Barack Obama. Now, curiously, very interestingly, he acknowledged that Barack Obama was the only Democrat he was going to vote for. In fact, every other candidate he selected and voted for was an independent, a Republican, or a libertarian. But Barack Obama was the lone Democrat that he voted for, and that, of course, again, is because Barack Obama is black and, well, half white, really, but you get the point. Anyway, so he writes in his blog, having an elected black president will do more to energize this country than any economic or social policy ever could. Can you imagine that? Did you know that someone's skin color can actually improve the economy? Someone's skin color, their physical appearance, that actually can do more for the economy, for national security, to secure the border, I guess, than any policy could. All you got to do is have a certain skin color, according to Mark Cuban, and that is the best thing for this country. But there you go. That's Mark Cuban's words. Are you beginning to understand that Mark Cuban's not a very bright individual? He's actually incredibly shallow and stupid. In 2012, of course, Cuban voted for Obama again. Uh, it's no surprise why. Barack Obama didn't change skin color. He's not like Kamala Harris, who one day is running as an Indian candidate and the next is running as a black candidate. No, Barack Obama was still black in 2012. That's true. And so Cuban again voted for Barack Obama. Uh, what's interesting is, of course, Mark Cuban doesn't care about policies. Now, in 2015, Mark Cuban, now, right, he hates Trump. And in 2015, Mark Cuban was actually a pretty big fan of Donald Trump's. And he said, I don't care what that would be Trump's actual positions are. This is according to Business Insider back in 2015. He said, I quote, I don't care if he says the wrong thing. He says what's on his mind. He gives honest answers rather than prepared answers. This is more important than anything any candidate has done in years. And he goes on to talk about how he has a problem, Cuban that is, with these career politicians. And he likes the fact that Trump is not a career politician. He says, again, I don't care what his actual positions are. I don't care if he says the wrong thing, and so on and so forth. Then he says, up until Trump announced his candidacy, the conventional wisdom was that you had to be a professional politician in order to run. You had to have a background that was politically scrubbed. In other words, smart people who didn't live perfect lives could never run. Donald is changing all that, Cuban said. He has changed the game, and for that, he deserves a lot of credit. So that is Mark Cuban about Donald Trump. Now, say what you will about Trump. Everything that Cuban observed there is absolutely true. None of that's changed. Um, Trump still says what's on his mind. He still gives honest answers instead of prepared answers. So anyway, so there he is. He says favorable things about Trump, and then a year later in 2016, he suddenly says that Donald Trump is bat, you know what, sh crap, crazy. Which is interesting coming from Mark Cuban because I actually grew up in Dallas. I was a Mavericks fan. I don't have much time to pay attention to basketball these days because I'm trying to put food on the table for my family. You know, under this economy, I'm worried about the open border, people being murdered on the street by illegals, those sorts of things. So I don't have a lot of time for that. I'm doing things like this. But nonetheless, he called Trump bat, you know what, crazy. But you know, Mark Cuban, it's funny. I think it was back in what, 2006? Yeah, 2006. The Mavericks were in the finals. And Mark Cuban, he was fined $250,000 because this was after the game 5 of the NBA Finals. He was screaming at referees. He was screaming at the league commissioner at the time. He was screaming at league officials. And in the post game session with reporters, he used profanity. So he was fine. And here's the thing about Mark Cuban. He doesn't have any humility, and he's incapable of admitting when he was wrong. So rather than offer any contrition when Stern, the commissioner at the time, came out and said, this is not good for basketball. This guy's losing control. He's such a petulant little child. Mark Cuban doubled down because he can't do no wrong. So that's who Mark Cuban is. So Donald Trump is bat, you know what, crazy, but Mark Cuban is screaming at officials and expressing profanities after basketball games. But anyway, by 2016, Cuban decided to endorse Hillary Clinton. And it's fascinating. Here he is out of one side of his mouth saying he loves the fact that Donald Trump isn't a career politician, and he thinks we shouldn't have career politicians. That's a problem in America. And then he turns around and does what? He endorses one of the biggest career politicians in American history, Hillary Clinton. So anyway, so this is a little bit of background about Mark Cuban, and he has repeatedly said things like, "The reality is people don't trust politicians. Politicians are the least trusted of every profession." And I actually want you to go ahead and cue up cut one. So Mark Cuban is so pathetic and humiliating himself so much as a propagandist for the left that he actually is going out of his way to go on media and actually defend Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris has come out. Now, one of the few policy positions she has come out and said, I support, this is something I would do, is taxing unrealized gains, which of course is a disaster. You're taxing people based on earnings that they don't actually have, right? Your home value goes up. You bought it for $100,000 and now your home's worth $500,000 and you have to pay taxes on the $400,000 that you don't have because you haven't sold the home. Now, they're applying this to people that are worth $100 million, of course, but nonetheless, the same principle holds true for these people. Now, here is Mark Cuban. In a rare moment of intelligence, he's actually articulate about why this would be a disaster. Now, again, Kamala Harris has come out and said that she supports this unrealized capital gains tax. That's her campaign saying it. And Mark Cuban was asked about this unrealized gain. And here's cut one, what he had to say about it.
If you tax unrealized gains, you're going to kill the stock market, right? And it's going to be the ultimate employment plan for private equity because companies are not going to go public because you can get whipsawed, right? I mean, my own personal experience back from the internet days, right? All of a sudden I was cash poor, but equity rich, right? My net worth was enormous, but the number of dollars in the bank wasn't enormous. And so I'd have, based off of the unrealized gains, I would have had to borrow money, and I effectively would have been in hock just to pay my tax bill instead of trying to run my company and 1,000 other reasons, right?
So honestly, Mark Cuban there just gave one of the most articulate answers and explanations about why the unrealized capital gains tax would be damaging for him and for the country. And so how is that somebody that can come out and recognize and say this is a absolute colossal disaster, this tax on unrealized gains, and then he's going to support Kamala Harris, who supports that very policy? Well, cue up cut two. Mark Cuban is a propagandist for Kamala Harris. He is going to now tell you that what Kamala Harris's campaign said she supports, that she doesn't in fact support. Go ahead and play cut two.
But as you've said yourself, you can't speak for the vice president. These are things they're telling you. Who knows what they're telling other people? My guess is they're telling anybody who's donating to them exactly what they want to hear at this point. What matters is what they say publicly and what they will stick to.
No, absolutely, positively not. Right. Let me just be very clear.
I don't know. Like, why do you think that they're telling you the truth and not telling other people other things?
Well,
if they won't say it publicly, say it publicly. Tell all of us so that we can hold you to it.
I get it, but you've got to get the details right. You can't just...
Yeah, but we have 60 days till an election. Like, you're asking people to take a flyer.
Even if it's the day before the election, right? Even if it's the day before. Look, the next question is, the second thing I was going to mention earlier.
I just don't want everybody to trade on what we think and what we feel and what we think may happen.
Exactly.
Just tell us.
I get your point exactly, right?
Why would Mark Cuban do this? Why is he out there lying on behalf of Kamala Harris? Why can't he criticize her for the position that she's come out and supported? Again, one of the few positions we've heard from. And she asked a great question there on CNBC. I mean, she has changed her position. She hasn't told us herself, but her campaign's put out information saying, oh, no. Yeah, she supported fracking. Now she doesn't. Oh, yeah. She supported Medicare for all. Now she doesn't. So virtually every position that she has claimed in the past, they are now saying she doesn't support. Now, they haven't told us what she does support in its stead, but we know that she supports all of these Soviet communist style, price controls and so on and so forth. So is Mark Cuban stupid or is he just an a-hole? I mean, that's the question we're still getting to. Now, in 2019, you had Cuban that was hinting that he was going to run for president himself. He said he was going to run as an independent, and he said he didn't believe any of the 23 Democrat candidates could actually beat Trump. And he called their policy ideas headline porn to get attention. And yet, what happened? He didn't run himself. He didn't have the cojones, and he supported Joe Biden. And in fact, after Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance, which left the media and Democrats calling for his forcible removal, which is what happened. They replaced him with Kamala Harris within, 24 hours. Well, he was saying he would still support Joe Biden. And now he's got Kamala Harris in there, and he automatically supports Kamala Harris. But it's no surprise, again, because he says he doesn't care about policies. He doesn't care. So what is he voting for? What is he supporting Kamala Harris for? Why? Because she's a Democrat? Because she's Indian? Because she's black? I don't know. But, Cuban, I got to say, I mean, this is a guy who told us that he leans libertarian, and yet he implemented mandates for his own employees to get the COVID jab. Have you ever heard of a libertarian who demands that their own employees get the COVID jab? This guy is a complete fraud. So anyway, but look, why should Mark Cuban care about any of this? Why should he care about policy? He's a billionaire. He's not affected by the open border. He's not affected by inflation. That's not hurting his family. He's not having trouble putting gas in his car. He's not having trouble putting food on the table or paying for groceries. He's not having trouble paying for his kids' education. He doesn't have to worry again about safety and security. He lives in mansions around the country, one certainly in Dallas. He can hire private security. He can fly on private jets. None of this affects him whatsoever. So at the end of the day, Mark Cuban is a complete fraud. He's a pathetic Democrat propagandist masquerading as something that he's not, that he's reasonable. He's not reasonable. He's a radical, and he only cares about himself. So, Mark Cuban is proof that you can be rich and you can actually be an idiot as well. And he's certainly a liar and a hypocrite. So there you go. That's who Mark Cuban is, another billionaire who is fighting to destroy America. All right, we're going to take one short break. And when we get back on the other side, we're going to talk about the state of America and more.
Sounds rolling. All three cameras. We're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I mean, I'm sitting here with you and I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Brilliant military career, serving 33 years.
Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn, one of America's most treasured military heroes. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Go to Patriot TV, click on Store, and grab a once-in-a-lifetime chance to own a treasured piece of American history. And get your own personal download link to watch America's most talked-about movie, as well as a DVD hand-signed by General Michael Flynn. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store. Incredible savings and a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
And we are back. I cannot think of a single thing that is going well in America under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's leadership. There is a very, very deep malaise in the country, to bring up a term from the Jimmy Carter years. And there's depression out there, and there is hardship. And I feel it myself when I pay a $700 a month gas and electric bill here in California where I live. It's getting harder and harder to survive and live. We're working harder just to pay for the same necessities that we paid for in the past. We haven't improved our lives. We aren't living in some way that is beyond what we did previously, but we have to work harder. We're making less. Prices have gone through the roof, and Americans are hurting very, very much. And as we approach this election, the question, of course, is what are those issues that are most important to the American voter? Are people going to vote like Mark Cuban, who says, I don't care about someone's policies. I like Barack Obama because he's black and I want to be a part of history. After 4 years of Barack Obama, I don't like his policies, but I'm going to vote for him again. Most Americans aren't billionaires. They're not insulated from the harm and damage and danger that has become this nation and globally as well. We are Americans fighting for our lives in many ways, fighting for our families. But it's interesting. There is a demographic out there that overwhelmingly supports Kamala Harris, and that would be women. That would be women. I mean, Donald Trump has eaten into much of the support for the Democrat Party and all these different groups, but women continue to remain a very strong supporter. There's a widening gap of support. Men support Trump. Women seem to support Kamala Harris. And I could think of no one better to come in and weigh in on this. What is important to women out there? Why are women doing this? And why are some women not supporting Kamala Harris? I couldn't think of anyone better than Kate Hildreth, who is in fact a woman. I thought I would bring a real woman on this show to talk about women and what matters to them. So Kate, thank you for being on the show. She is host, by the way, of the podcast Rogue Generation. Kate, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So look, you have actually done an amazing job. You've been focused on a lot of these studies about women and single women, and the really worrisome trend in which we're not having children, there aren't families anymore, and so on and so forth. I want to give you this piece of information real quick. Now, polls, as we know, you can oversample them. Polls are what they are, right? I mean, believe them or not. But this particular poll that was done by CNN not long ago, which did oversample Democrats. But the only thing I want to point out here is that the abortion and reproductive rights issue, right, that we're told is so important and, is driving women voters. Well, they did a poll in the swing states. So Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And abortion and reproductive rights, when asked which of the following issues are the most important to you to decide how to vote for president, it was basically 10%. So 10% of people polled, this is men and women, of course, I don't know the breakdown, but they 10%, that was the issue. So, I mean, how significant is that issue going into November?
For me, it's a foundational issue. Honestly, I hear a lot of people say that, having having your political opinion be based on a singular issue maybe isn't smart. But for me, if you have someone who is quite literally saying that a certain group of people aren't people, that's a foundational issue for me, because that's a very slippery slope any way you slice it, really. And so for me, it's a huge issue. And I think that's why, and for a lot of pro-lifers too, and that's why that a lot of pro-lifers were very upset when, they saw these clips of Donald Trump circulating on social media about him talking about the way that he's personally going to vote on some Florida bill or something. And pro-lifers felt very betrayed by that, because, they're on the other side of the spectrum of abortion is a huge issue for them, just as much as, these radical leftists consider abortion to be a human right for a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so this is fascinating here, by the way. So I just want to give you the numbers. So Harris has an 18-point gender gap support over former President Trump with women. So in other words, what's the breakdown here? I'll give you. So among women, Harris leads by 13 points, 54% to 41%. And among men, former President Trump leads by 5 points. What do you think? What is it? And then I'll get your personal opinion about like your, what's important to you. But why do you think there are so many women that are wanting and eager to support Kamala Harris? It can't just be that she's a woman.
Actually, I think that it can. I wouldn't underestimate how excited women are at the prospect of a female president. I think the other piece of it that's kind of coupled with the fact that she's a woman is that she's biracial. And I know a lot of people are saying that right now, but I think it's true. Like, it's the same thing you were discussing earlier with Obama. People are saying, I want to be a part of history, or I'm voting for this person because we need representation. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because I'm a woman and I want a woman to be president. It's such a shallow reason to vote for someone. And honestly, it is kind of sexist, because you're basically saying, like, that's the best thing about her is that she's a woman. And that's what makes her appealing to women, for women to vote for. And it honestly is the only thing that's quote unquote appealing, because I don't like her. I mean, what has she done for the American people in her time as vice president that has actually helped women, or anyone for that matter? Nothing. So yeah, I mean, being a woman is pretty much the only appealing thing that I think people can think of, and that's why they want to vote for her.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you an outlier amongst kind of your friends and the people you spend time? I mean, I don't really have many Democrat friends left in my life, Kate, to be honest. And it's not because I cut them out. I've talked about this to you, before, but it's because they don't want to be friends with me, because, like, I'm a MAGA domestic terrorist, I guess. So anyway, I don't know what your personal situation is, but I mean, do you find that with your friends that you're kind of an outlier? Not going all in for Kamala Harris because she's a woman?
I would say yes, absolutely. Actually, a perfect example of this is a couple weeks ago on Facebook. I had, a good college friend of mine is friends with me on Facebook, and I posted something about, being anti-abortion. And I wouldn't really say we got into a debate. It was more like a confrontation in which I was presenting facts and information, and she was basically just being personally insulting. It's sad to kind of narrow down the people in your life, but at the same time, when that happens, I feel like it's kind of a weight off my shoulders, because I don't want to be surrounded by people who are, that oblivious, or who radically believe that this is a human right. And it's very telling to me in those kind of situations where you're being confronted by someone or just engaging in some kind of discussion, it's very telling when the only thing that they can throw back is an insult, or like they don't even acknowledge the facts. They're just like, you're stupid, like they just throw out stuff because they have no way to actually defend their argument fundamentally.
Yeah, it is incredible. And this is from personal experience. I think anybody has had this experience, but if you try to engage Democrats, whether they're friends or strangers, about the issues, what makes it so hard is they actually don't know what you're talking about. They're the least informed people in this country, and what they are informed with and by are propagandists who don't give them any details. They just give them broad strokes that aren't based on reality at all. Trump is a threat to democracy. Trump is against abortion. I mean, it's amazing to me. And this is the thing, um, I am okay for now with kind of some of the things Trump's coming out and saying that are distancing himself from the, like, let me just say this way. So I'm pro-life, and Donald Trump has done more for the pro-life movement than anybody because he's responsible through his Supreme Court justice appointments with overturning Roe v. Wade and giving pro-life advocates at least a chance now to take control of the issue in their individual states. So that's practical. That's pragmatic. That's what he did. And what I see is, Trump is playing ball, right? So he's trying not to give the Democrats any issue going into November. So he's coming out and saying, well, maybe we can revisit. And I don't know what the abortion thing, but he's coming out. I mean, the point is, his position has been that the president cannot and should not and must not, federalize the abortion issue, which I'm okay with. But he is not coming out and saying things like I would in terms of defending, the right of, the unborn. Now, I say this because I understand politics. I'm okay to overlook that for now. If he does something that goes against that, that's a problem for me. But these individuals on the left, who abortion is such an important issue for them, no matter what Trump said, Trump could come out and support infanticide tomorrow, like they might, and these people still wouldn't vote for Trump. So to me, I guess I'm issuing a caution because, changing your positions to a certain extent to win an election, they're actually not going to win those voters over anyway, I don't think.
Well, I mean, yes, I agree with you that Trump, there was some big wins for the pro-life movement under Trump. And that's what I care about more. I don't really care about his personal opinion. I mean, I think he's wrong, but I care much more about legislation and policy when it comes to supporting the pro-life movement than just someone's personal opinion. And I keep telling people, mostly telling people on the left, but also now people on the right, I get that they feel like this is some kind of betrayal. I don't think I've ever seen Trump actually say that he's 100% pro-life ever. But at the same time, like it shouldn't really matter because he's not there to be your best friend. You don't have to agree with him on everything. The question is he a good leader for the country? Like, is he going to support the policies and issues that you care about, whether or not he personally agrees with them? And I think that's one of the big differences between, Trump and Kamala. There are many, of course. But I feel like Kamala, anyway, her personal opinion goes, she's going to be like, let's make a rule about that, or let's make a policy about that. But point being, I care more about policy than Trump's personal opinion, even though I think he's wrong. And I don't think that he's necessarily contradicting his stance exactly. I know he's like more pro-life than Kamala, but I don't know that he's ever been 100% pro-life that I've seen. But, I get that pro-lifers feel a little betrayed, but is it going to be better than Kamala and, having abortions outside the DNC? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, that's the question that we need to be asking ourselves, and that's the question I'm going to ask you to get into further when we get back from this break. All right, we'll be right back with Kate Hildreth after this.
Don't let them win. Patriot TV is committed to delivering the truth. America's new network for Patriots is growing fast, and we'd love you to join us as a member of Patriot TV. Your support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver unbiased reporting, thought-provoking discussions, and insights you won't find anywhere else. From in-depth interviews to behind-the-scenes footage, Patriot TV brings you closer to the voices shaping our nation's future. Whether it's political developments, cultural shifts, or global affairs, Patriot TV keeps you informed and empowered. As a member of Patriot TV, you'll get perks like personal invitations to exclusive Patriot TV events, where you can gather and network with like-minded Americans. We'll also host online events throughout the year with General Flynn, who's committed to host live Q&A webinars where callers like you can ask him questions and get real answers. Access to these events will be members only, so go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. We have a great membership option starting at just $9.99 a month, or save with our annual membership for only $99, or take advantage of the best value, the 2-year membership for just $159. Go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. Do your part to make sure the truth gets out to all Patriots and help ensure future programming. Become a member today. Just go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member, join today.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
And we are back. Welcome to the Drew Allen Show. And I've got Kate Hildreth with me, host of the Generation Rogue podcast, a woman to talk about women things and support or lack of support for Kamala Harris, frankly. Who better to talk about women supporting Kamala Harris than a woman herself? What are the issues that matter to you in this election? I guess I'm scratching my head, right? You're explaining a little bit to me. A lot of women out there simply are shallow enough to support Kamala Harris simply because she's a woman and she's biracial and she's got this story. But of course, that's divorced from policy. What is driving your vote? Come November.
Definitely abortion is one of them. For
but
sure.
Not the way other people think about it.
Right.
When you say it, you're not saying you want your abortions. You're saying you're pro-life. Just to make sure.
Yes, I am pro-life.
Because everyone assumes women are all for abortion. Yeah.
Yes. I am totally against abortion. Done a lot of research and looked at the science and all these kinds of things, and that just has only made me stronger pro-life, I think. So abortion is one. IVF is now one also, not in the way you might think. I am maybe controversially against IVF because I've looked into it lately, but also, the border situation, America First policies. We don't want a World War III. I just think, even if you knew nothing about politics, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that we were way better off under the Trump administration than the Biden administration. People like to bring up COVID, and that's fine. But aside from COVID, I feel like we were doing pretty well during Trump's presidency. Like, gas was down, groceries were down. We were doing pretty well. And every time I look at how much a grocery run costs, it just blows my mind. And those are the main issues that I care about. The immigration is a huge problem, and I think it's outrageous that Kamala is now flip-flopping on that and being like, oh, actually, kind of support the wall, even though I've been talking against it for the last 8 years or however long. So yeah, those are the main issues that I'm looking for come November.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely can't think of a single reason to support Kamala Harris. I mean, you brought up COVID, which I think is important because, for me, and for many, people on the right, let's just call them sane Americans who understood that the COVID lockdowns were tyrannical, that it was a seizure of our rights, that it was a huge mistake. Now, a lot of people want to, hang that like an albatross over Trump's neck and put the blame squarely on him. And that's fine to the extent that, he was president at the time. He was bamboozled like everyone. But, Democrats not only supported those same COVID policies, but when Trump was calling to open up the country, they were saying, no, 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 he's getting people killed. So, I don't see how any of these even truthfully negative things that came out of the Trump administration, unprecedented with the COVID stuff and so on and so forth, how you can use that to hurt Trump, because the Democrats, like Mark Cuban, wanted to force vaccinate everybody. And so,
Right.
I'm just scratching my head out there at these people who, you know, want to withhold support for Trump because he's not a purist on some of these issues. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We lived under a Trump administration and we lived under a Biden Kamala Harris administration. And objectively, right, if you ask yourself, was I better off under Trump or Biden Harris? No one can honestly say they're better off now than they were under Trump, right?
No, absolutely not.
Can you? So you mentioned IVF.
Hmm.
What? I mean, I won't do like a 20-minute IVF section here, but what did you learn about IVF? Because I got to be honest, I don't fully understand the issue. The Democrats want to make that a big issue. You say you've done a lot of research and you're oppose IVF. Like, what is that led you to kind of to have that stance?
Well, I was pro IVF for a long time, mostly because I didn't understand it, I think. The process always kind of bothered me a little bit, the kind of artificial, in a lab type of
Thank God.
thing. But it was kind of like, how bad can it be if it's helping a couple have a child? And so I didn't really do any research for a long time. And by the way, have a lot of sympathy for people who are struggling with fertility. This is not trying to downplay that at all. But when you look at the process of IVF, what happens is, the woman has some eggs removed and fertilized basically in a petri dish. And then the doctor tries to like insert it and have it attached to the uterus. But in that process, pretty much unless you live in a state where there are severe restrictions for the amount of embryos that can be created, there are embryos being disposed of, like in the lab, every single time. They make a bunch of embryos, only some of them implant, they have a bunch of extra, and depending on what state you live in, they could be like quite literally tossed in the trash. And no one cares and no one's talking about it because I feel like there's a lot of opaqueness in IVF. And part of it is marketing, right? We want to market it as this solution for people struggling with fertility issues, but we don't see that kind of dark side where literally human beings are being thrown out with the garbage.
Yeah, and it's also used by a lot of people, gay couples, for example, I think, right, to give themselves a child, and so it is used. Yeah, I mean, it's presented in one way, I suppose, but it's also used to continue to disturb the nuclear family. And there's no discussion. The reason I asked you about it because I mean, thank you, by the way, Kate, because that's the most I think I've ever heard anybody actually talk about it. Because all I hear out there is Trump wants to, he doesn't actually, but, Trump wants to oppose IVF and you can't vote for him because that's what Democrats, the talking point from Democrats. And yet I've never talked to a Democrat who can even tell me what IVF really is or the issue. It's just like, it's like the Arlington Cemetery non-incident, right? Trump's invited to go and be with, bereaved families who lost loved ones under the Biden administration and their botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. And he shows up and he comforts them, and he takes a picture with them. And the left is saying this is a scandal, and everybody on the left is saying Trump's horrible. I mean, they're the ones on the left attacking the military families now because of this, just so they can come up with some kind of hysteria related to Trump. And I feel like that's all you get from the left is just this hysteria driven by ignorance. So anyway, I mean, I would encourage everyone to look into these issues, and I don't think enough people do, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and what you said about, gay couples, I mean, surrogacy, I could do probably a whole series on surrogacy. And I think I would argue the immoral things about surrogacy, and that whole thing. But I agree with you. I do think that a lot of people don't know. They don't really know the process of IVF. It's like this mysterious thing. And, number one, you're basically turning children into commodities, right? It's like $15,000 or $30,000 a pop for each round of IVF. So people are like refinancing their houses for this procedure. That isn't even 100% effective, of course. And then, also instead of addressing the root causes of infertility, you're just using science to play God and literally putting procreation in the hands of big pharma and the government. And I just think there's a lot of issues with that. And of course, you're disposing of them. You're treating human life as disposable. So obviously that's an issue. But the big thing also, like I said, it is kind of it's giving big pharma a lot of power because, that there's now talk about these artificial wombs in the lab. And so, hypothetically with, the technology behind IVF, you could have an embryo in a petri dish and then put it in this artificial womb, and boom, the government creates its own people. So why do you need to have children on your own? Just go to the government and ask the government when you want to have a child. I mean,
yeah, these are things that nobody thinks about. And you're right; they always go too far. They always go that direction. There are families out there that are married and they use IVF to have a child, and that's not really becoming the majority of people that are using IVF. So you have a problem that's being solved for somebody in that situation, and then you next thing you know, you're right, you have artificial wombs. You're just growing children, and there's no family attached whatsoever. It's frightening, actually. It's terrifying that could happen. We're going to take one more short break, and we're going to come back on the other side with Kate Hildreth. I want to get her take on J.D. Vance's comments about this latest horrific school shooting, and more importantly, how the pathetic, disgraceful Harris-Walz campaign is lying again to take advantage and seize upon another tragedy. We'll be right back after this.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your My Pillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com. Looking to give your wardrobe an upgrade? Well, look no further. Here at God Country & Kin, we've got you covered from head to toe, from shoulder to shoulder, and everything in between. Introducing our brand new Patriotic Collection, designed to display your patriotic spirit with a stylish look that's sure to turn heads. And the best part is, you don't have to break the bank to be your best you. Why wait? Visit us online or in-store today and elevate your style with God Country and Kin. God Country and Kin, where patriotism meets style. Shop now. Visit the Patriot TV store and look for the God Country Kin banner to find the perfect outfit, shirt, accessory, or maybe a great hat.
You can totally see yourself rocking this hat. I know you can. And check out all the great stuff we've got to show your patriotism at patriot.tv.store. Click that link above that says store and join me there at the Patriot TV store.
And we're back. This is Drew Allen, and we've got Kate Hildreth with us, the host of the Generation Rogue podcast. Kate, thanks for sticking around. I did want to get into this. I actually hate talking about these things for the most part because I get so tired of the way the left exploits every shooting, and they never actually address the quote-unquote root cause. But in this case, it's another example. You can look at exactly what drove it. It's a broken family, a mother who was on drugs, an irresponsible father who gave his 14-year-old an AR-15 after the FBI came to his house because the son had gone online and said he was going to shoot up the school. We're talking about, the nuclear family, how that's relevant and important. And, this is just like, how many more times do we have to see this and find out what's behind this and have the Democrats say it's the guns, when it's their policies that are responsible for creating these situations and monsters? I mean, the killer, I don't even want to say his name. He murdered 2 classmates and 2 teachers. It's reported he grew up in a broken and neglectful home. And his mother has a lengthy rap sheet with drug and domestic violence arrests. And I just think it's unbelievable to me. I mean, how many times, like, the FBI and the DOJ will lock up, your nana or whatever you want to call your grandma because she was in the Capitol on January 6th taking selfies. They'll lock her away for 20 years and stick her in the gulag. And, they'll hunt you down. And then you've got a guy who was online. The FBI knew this guy made a threat to shoot up a school. And then sure enough, it happens. But, am I crazy for linking something here that there's a problem with violence in this country related to broken families? Am I making this up?
No, you're not. Yes, this does seem to be a recurring issue, and it's very scary, this idea of, I've heard Harris talk about some kind of buyback program to take people's guns away. And it's very upsetting because it's like either people don't know any history at all, or they're just like intentionally ignoring it. But this is exactly what happens before, a mass casualty situation. So what you don't hear about, of course, in, these large historical events like the Holocaust is they took their guns away first so that their people were defenseless, so that when, people started getting taken to camps, they had no way to defend themselves. So, this has happened again, time and time again, not just the Holocaust, like throughout history. And it's just baffling to me that this keeps coming up, this obvious cultural problem that we have, where we have broken families, we have drug problems, we have, this kind of just attack on the brain, honestly, in our culture, in our media. Like, everything around us is like this bombardment of information, most of which is not true. And then we're surprised when, someone acts out. And by the way, this idea of taking away people's guns, how did that kid get his gun? He got it illegally, right? He wasn't supposed to have it in the first place. And this is something you see with school shooters all the time. Like, most of the time, they stole the gun or got it somewhere like illegally. So the idea that changing gun laws is going to stop criminals from shooting at people is just ridiculous. It's like, oh, there's a gun law. Well, I guess I won't steal a gun because I want to murder people. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So gun laws are going to do nothing if they're more restrictive. And we certainly shouldn't be giving our guns back to the government, because then we have no way of defending ourselves. And historically, that does not end well.
Well, California, where I live, is the perfect example, right? California leads the nation in mass shootings, despite having the strictest gun control laws in the country. And they don't want to talk about that. And of course, the one constant, right? The one thing that has remained unchanged in America is our access to guns. And as a matter of fact, we've had more restrictions over the previous decades, right? And we didn't used to have epidemics of violence, school shootings, and so on and so forth, like we do today. So guns obviously are not the root cause. It is a failure of our schools. It's a failure of our culture and society. You know, the Nashville trans killer who shot up the Catholic school, they just got access and released, the Tennessee Star, I believe, did, or they're releasing it in parts, but they got access finally to the manifesto, or a lot of the documents. And I just want to tell you a couple of things, because, you know, everyone's trying to be politically correct about this still, and they just can't figure out what drove this this trans shooter. I'm not laughing because of what she did, but I'm laughing at the absurdity of the fact that they want to pretend like they can't figure out what drove this and who's responsible. But here's a couple quotes that was put out by the Tennessee Star related to that. Remember, you know, if you were born under a rock or have been in hiding for the last like 3 years, you know, an individual in Nashville who was a female who a biological female who wanted to be a man, went and shot up her old private school and killed a bunch of young kids and teachers, I believe. But anyway, so here's my brain doesn't. Why does my brain not work right? This monster wrote, because I was born wrong. Hey, I happen to be a Christian. That's my personal faith, right? You know, in where I come from and what I was taught, you know, you can't be born wrong. You know, there's a perfection in God's creation, and you're born male and female. So my children and people around me would never be led on to believe something like this, that they were born wrong. You weren't born wrong. You were born exactly as you were intended to be. So what is it that could drive someone first? I mean, right off the bat, when this person says, why does my brain not work right? Because I was born wrong. I mean, where is that coming from? I mean, when your school says, oh yeah, I guess, you know, you or the Democrat Party out there tells people a gender theory, like, oh yeah. If you just have these surgeries and hormone therapy, like, you can become something else. They want to encourage and tell people and confuse them, right? And tell them, oh yeah, you were born in the wrong body. I mean, is this not a one red flag?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically telling kids that, you know, if you're a girl and you're not hyper feminine, or if you're a boy and you're not hyper masculine, like you don't like to play with trucks or whatever, that you're born wrong, or maybe you should be a girl, or like whatever. And this is happening like to kids so young now. Like adults are telling kids that, oh, well, maybe you're this or maybe you're that. Or, you know, if a kid expresses, like, if a boy expresses interest in a doll, then the parents now are like, oh, well, you must be a girl then. You know, this is a sign that my son is actually a girl. And it's like, what? Like, children are so impressionable, and the adults are either falling for it or just, you know, trying to get into, because it's like a trend, right? Like having an LGBT kid, you know, is like an exclusive group now. So it's almost like the parents want, you know, this credit for having a trans kid and like being so brave and all of this stuff. And meanwhile, this kid is being told that there's something wrong with them physically, that, you know, maybe they should take these poisonous chemicals that are given to pedophiles to castrate them. And all along they're being told that this will fix a problem that might not exist. And when it does exist, by the way, it's a lot rarer. Actual gender dysphoria is quite rare. most kids, and there was a study that came out, I think earlier this year or maybe last year, that came out basically proving that most kids who are confused about their bodies or like uncomfortable during puberty, which is, by the way, most kids, if you've ever been through puberty, like no one is completely confident with their growing body. Okay. But most kids grow out of those feelings, and the kids that don't, again, are being told that surgery is going to solve this, just take these drugs and they'll solve all your problems. Well, they're treating a mental illness with physical changes, right? Giving someone surgery is not going to fix a mental problem. Like, that's a fact. It's a mental illness. So it's like, I forget who used this example, but it's basically like saying if someone's anorexic, and they think that they're fat, should doctors give them liposuction? Like, however much they want, right? Because they see themselves a certain way, they think they should be another way, and doctors are going to risk this person's life because they have a mental illness by giving them a surgery that they don't need, which is medically very dangerous. And by the way, most people who get the surgeries don't know the long-term complications that come along with that. And there are plenty of detransitioners who now are speaking out about this, about the ongoing, medications they have to be on for the rest of their life, these life-threatening complications that keep coming up repeatedly because of the surgeries they've had. No one gets told that, when they're 15 and say that they want to get the surgery.
No, I mean, they're preying on the most innocent amongst us, the children. And of course, you can follow the money too. I mean, there's huge money in these doctors performing these gender mutilating surgeries and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's so corrupt. It's so diabolical. But that's all the time we have for today. Kate, I want to thank you for sticking around with us for so long. I can't wait to bring you back on. You can be the official female voice, in America. That's what you will be bestowed upon you, the title going forward. Okay.
That'd be great. I'm very passionate about these issues, so anytime.
Amazing. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.